it's Sharon here. Welcome back to my channel for those who are returning, and welcome to any new subscribers that may be visiting for the first time. So as you can see, I have a very messy desk. I have left these pieces overnight to dry, and I have come back out to my workspace to carry on with the next step. Now, I'm kind of experimenting with products. If you haven't watched the last video, I will link it below, but I've painted these chipboard pieces with homemade chalk paint, and that homemade chalk paint was made from just a normal, was a Dulux paint, I believe. I talk about how I made the chalk paint in another video, which I will also link below if you wish to have a look. And I had some leftover paint, so I've used that to paint these pieces. And I've also painted some with some gesso. So these are the chalk paint ones, and I've got an emery board here, and I just want to sand around the edges a little bit, going for that distressed look. Oh, that's better. I have the fine side, I think. And I was thinking of doing this with all of them, but I don't think I will because I have something else I'd like to try. So, like I said, I'm just experimenting with this idea to see what works and what doesn't, and what I like and what I don't like. Kind of have a feeling I'm going to like them all, but I wasn't sure how much texture I would get from that paint, but they're not too bad actually. I don't really think they need sanding. This one's got some lumpy bits from where it was sitting to dry. Just kind of smoothing it out a little bit. Roughing it up. So I hope you're all fabulous. So my head is doing overtime. When I first looked at these kits that I'm using for this process, this is what I had in mind for my design team project. I will share with you that I've since been inspired, and I'm thinking about working, or I started working on a journal because you've seen me create the cover. So I started thinking about pages and signatures and what I was doing there last night and this morning, and I've had some really inspired ideas. So I'm a bit excited, and I'm a little bit in my head because I'm thinking about all of that at the moment and how I'm pulling it all together, and really just how excited I am about the whole process. So it's so fun to be inspired by something. And like I said, when I looked at these kits, journal wasn't necessarily what I thought, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've gone, oh my gosh, I can do this and I can try that, and what if that works? And that's just really invigorating. So I'm excited about all of it. Okay, so I'm going to do some of these. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to do a mixture of sizes. And I think these ones I'm going to leave as is. And then they will be sealed. Now, I have beside me a container similar to the one I had my chalk paint in, or the same. And I've got some, it's actually the same lacquer that I use to seal my shelving with. And I'm going to use that to seal some of, not all of, but some of these chipboard pieces. Now again, I'm just using what I have, and I'm experimenting with what I have to see what might work and what won't work. So I know that I actually tried using this lacquer on, I'll just get the tin and show you what I'm talking about. So this is the lacquer that I'm using. It's a water-based Cabothane Clear. It's water-based, it's non-yellowing, and it's matte. So I've decided to, because I have some leftover in a container, my container with my leftover, again, like the chalk paint, a little goes a very, very long way. And this is the same brush that I use to add that to my, or apply that to my shelving. I really just want to see how it translates onto something like this. Now I did use that same lacquer to, it was actually when I did my little embossed pieces, and I tried painting over one of them with the lacquer to see what sort of effect I got, and I didn't really like it across the paper. It was kind of streaky. It left streaks. You could see that it was definitely applied, and I don't know, it's hard to explain. It didn't have a really, it kind of looked half done, if that makes sense. Like it had streaks in the lacquer, and even applying a second coat didn't make a difference. And it was a little bit opaque, I think. It's hard to explain. I didn't like it. I think I've got that piece in my other craft room with the other embossing that I did. I don't think I've used it yet, so I can try and show that to you in this video. I'm kind of going to do this as a two-part. I'm going to have a little play with these, and then I want to move into my other craft area. I'll leave these to dry. Just a bit of a rough edge there, or rough surface, sorry. And this chalk paint does sand really, really well. Okay, I think I'm just going to do those 5. I'm going to set these aside because I will take those into my craft room. I do want to just smooth off any lumps and bumps that may be on there. That one's okay. So I'm just looking at the surface. The flat surface. So here I have a little lumpy bumpy at the hole there. Not looking for perfection, just I do want them to have a slightly finished look, if that makes any sense at all. I'm actually really quite happy with the way these have painted up. You could possibly do a 3rd layer if you wanted to. They do have a slightly patchy appearance in places, but again, I don't want perfect. I just want it to look nice, and I love the fact that things that I make have a handmade look about them, which kind of is in line with the whole theory of vintage for me. It's, you know, back in the day they didn't have machines to manufacture items. Most things were handmade, and a lot of blood, sweat and tears went into them, and I really love that. So I'm going to pick these up. Now I have popped another piece of my baking paper underneath here to give me a dust-free surface. Okay, I just realized I've got lines across here. They are actually, those shadows are actually some string that I've got to try and hold my camera stand in place. I'm really sorry about that. I need to work on a better setup for this room, and it's really not quite ready to be used. But I really didn't want to do this chalk paint in my other craft space, so I've headed out here and I've jimmied up my camera stand as best I can. I've just noticed the shadows running across there. How funny. So sorry about that, guys. Now I'm just going to wipe these down. I don't actually have a wet towel or anything out here, so I'm just going to use this baby wipe, and I'm only doing this to remove any dust from the sanding all the way around. So I have considered whether or not I'm better to lacquer these first and then attach my images, or whether I'm better to attach the images and then do the lacquer. So I'm going to lacquer these, and maybe even if I perhaps do 3 of them, I don't know. I've got plenty left over, so maybe I'll do all of them, and then we can have a play with the others in a different way. I don't know how the lacquer will translate as far as applying other things to it. So I have my little container here with my lacquer. Now, remembering this chalk paint did have vintage photo in it, and I also wasn't sure how that would translate for these pieces. It doesn't seem to be too bad, actually. I quite like the way it's applying. For those of you who watched my video where I talked about the chalk paint and my experiment with that, I did end up bringing the vintage photo right back. Okay, I had a little air bubble or 2 in there, but that seems to be better. So probably had way too much lacquer on the brush just then. Oh, I'm really loving this. And remembering this is a matte finish, it's not a gloss. I do have my hole is filled with lacquer, so I'm just using my paper clip, my pointy little paper clip, just to burst that bubble, so to speak. Oh, these are pretty. I really love the way that edging has worked out, the way it's popping once the lacquer is on there. I wasn't sure how noticeable it would be, but it's showing nicely with the lacquer over the top. Okay. It kind of makes me want to do more of them like this, but like I said, I'm experimenting and I really don't know how the finished product will go. So again, lacquer over the edges. I'm just kind of using my nails, not my actual fingers, to hang on to it while I turn it around, with the hope that I'm not taking away too much of the lacquer around the edges by holding on to it. And moving that out of, I've got a little bit of a lacquer mess on my paper here, so moving it away from that so hopefully they don't stick to the paper. Okay, so the last one. Just hitting those edges. Okay, so I'm going to leave those to dry, and they will take a little while. And I'm going to come back in. I think I will do a second coat. I haven't decided. I will see how they look. I may or may not turn the camera on. I'll see how I go. Oops, sorry, I'm shaking everything around here. And then I will do the back the same. So whether I apply 1 or 2 coats to the front determines whether I do 1 or 2 coats on the back, and leave those to dry before I do anything further with those. My paintbrush, I'm just going to wrap that in Glad Wrap, and it will be ready to use for the next round. As you can see, that's what I did with my chalk paintbrush, and it was fine between coats. So I will turn the camera off and I will pop some Glad Wrap around my brush, and we will head into my other craft space to work on the others. And I will be taking these extras with me, so I'll see you in there. Okay, so I'm back again in my craft space, and I wanted to quickly show you the image that I was talking about that I used the lacquer on. So that is the image that I used the lacquer on, and I don't know if you can see, it's kind of got streak marks. I will say when I came back in and had a second look, I actually don't hate it, so I may do a couple of my pieces using the lacquer and see how they come up. And just for reference, so this is an embossed image compared to the lacquered image. So this has a sheen, a high sheen, whereas this has a matte finish, and it was a matte lacquer, which I really love. But I was more concerned about the streaking, and I don't know if that's showing up very clearly on camera, but like I said, looking at it now, I actually don't mind it. I do love that vintage matte look, so I think I will give that a go. It's funny, I really like that now that I've taken a second look at it. When I first did it, I wasn't so sure, but looking back at it now, I'm thinking I really love it. So sometimes it's good to revisit things too, because I guess when I was working on it previously, I was after a particular look, and it obviously didn't fit that look. But having a look at it now with a different object in mind, I'm going, maybe that could really work. So what do I need? Just going to get some baking paper. This will be a little bit noisy, sorry. Okay, so actually I might get a second piece. Okay, and I have an emery board in here, and I am going to do a couple of pieces with the gesso. Now I will show you the difference. There's not a lot of difference. So these are the gesso and these are the chalk paint. So this is a slightly warmer white. Again, making reference to the vintage photo that I have in there. You could put a little bit of vintage photo into your gesso if you want more of that antique vintage white look. But again, be really careful about the quantities that you use. I think I had roughly 4 to 8 drops per cup, and I did end up with a little bit of seepage into my water-based lacquer. So moving forward, I would possibly only use 2 to 4 drops per cup. And hubby is making me another set of shelving, so I will be playing with that more. But for now, I have this leftover paint, so I'm really happy with the way they've turned out. And you could get that slightly warmer white with your gesso if that's what you have to play with, which is one of the reasons I'm doing both, because I wanted to show you if you don't have the chalk paint, you do have options. So okay, so I'm going to set those aside. I want to choose a couple of these, and I'm going to say those. Oh, actually, I might do that one. And again, same process as I did with my others with the chalk paint. I'm just going to rough up these edges. I will say these are roughing up just a little more or a little easier than the chalk paint did. I'm not actually seeing a great amount of detail in where I've sanded that, but I'm wondering if it will show more once I wipe them over. I'm not sure I've taken it back far enough, is what I'm getting at. And all the way around both sides. I do actually have one of these block sanders here from Kaisercraft. I might try it. Oh, it's a little bit better. It's a little bit easier. Okay, I think I will leave it there. Again, I'm just going to use a baby wipe and just wipe any excess dust off them. And that's come back quite nicely. It's really hard to see how far you're bringing them back when you're actually sanding them, because the dust from the sanding kind of camouflages, makes it look like you haven't touched it at all. Okay. And time-wise, I'm just going to remove that, which gives ourselves a nice clean workspace, and bring these back. Now for this, I have my Distress, I'll bring it up closer, my Distress Collage Medium. I'm going to use that to seal them. I just need to get a brush. Okay, so I have my images here. I have printed them onto tissue paper as well as the paper. And I'm going to play with both again so that we can see if, for those people who aren't capable of printing on tissue paper, who are worried about trying, who don't feel comfortable, don't wish to do that, but would like to make something similar, we're going to have a play to see how they come out either way. So I have my pieces here, and I'm just going to choose some images that I think will work. So I might play with the little ones, and we'll do, just seeing what will work. We might even be able to do the same on both. We'll see. I think I've backed some of my pages with a backing paper as well for a different project. Again, I've kind of been playing as you can see. That's for a different video, so I just want to see what I have. Sorry, I'm not even sure I'm on camera properly. I like those. That's pretty. I really love these. Okay, let's pull this out. I kind of need to see if I've printed that page on tissue paper, but I think I have. Ah, yes, here we go. By the look of it, I've just done 2 on tissue. So and I have the paper clips on here just to hold the tissue flat, because as you can see, well, you can see better with this one, has a tendency to curl up on itself. So if I hold it in place with the paper clips, you can see this piece of tissue here has a little bit of a tear in it. When I went to get it off the backing paper that I used to put it through the printer, it accidentally tore. I'm looking at this image here. Now, I don't know if it's possible to use water and a paintbrush to remove an image from paper as it is with tissue, but I'm going to give it a go. So I've just got my water brush. Again, I haven't put any water into it. I've just got a little cup of water here, and just dipping it into the water, I'm going to paint around this image on the paper. And we'll see if that helps actually remove it from the sheet. Now I'm expecting it will take a moment longer to seep in, and I'm not sure if I'm going to end up with some colour running from my ink. But like I said, I just want to experiment to see what it's possible to do and not do. I can see that paper's become a little more transparent, and it is tearing a little bit easier. Much easier. Okay, so that's really good to know. It works on paper as well as tissue. I quite like the way it's left a slightly torn edge, but it's smoothish. So I'm just seeing how this image fits. I might take more off the bottom. So I'm going to use the water again, and I want to just come in closer to the image here. And here, I think. Again, I'm experimenting, I'm playing, I'm just seeing what I'm capable of doing. So just tearing that away as best I can. And it's just made me wonder. I've got tweezers here. So I can use my tweezers if you don't have fingernails, if you have trouble with your fingers. You could use the tweezers just to get in closer to that image, following the water that you've popped on there. So that's a little bit dry there and it's not pulling, so I'm not going to force it. I just moved my tweezers back a little bit. And it made me think of the tweezers because I wanted to get in here a bit better and I couldn't get my fingers in there. So that works really, really well. Which means I could get closer in here. Perhaps here. Just thinking this could be a whole new fun way of fussy cutting images. Getting a little bit closer to the source without cutting. If you don't cut very easily, perhaps you have problems with your hands and you find it a little bit more difficult to get close to the image. This way is a little bit fiddlier, but definitely handy for people who struggle with scissors. I actually really love that edge that it's giving me, as opposed to a straight cut edge. And I'm being a little bit more precise with this image just because I'm experimenting. I just really wanted to see how it worked with the copy paper using the water and the brush. I've thought about it before, but I've never actually tried it. Pretty happy with that. I'm just wondering if I can get a fraction more off here to work in with my hole at the top. Okay, so I'm just removing all the little bits. I'm excited about that process actually, because I really wasn't sure it would work. Okay, now while I have my brush at the ready, I'm going to get the same image out of the tissue. As you can see, it's rolling up. That's the problem I have with it for storing. So I just paper clip it to the papers themselves, and it kind of keeps it flat, and that way I can store it the same way. So again, I'm using the British Wildflower papers from JunkWithSteph as part of my design team project. And I really love how these papers have inspired me to step out of my comfort zone and try different things. Okay, so just tearing out this image, just taking it slowly, using the water as my guide. I'm not sure it wants to tear that way, so just going to add a little bit more water. Done. Okay, so I'm using these two. Okay, and then I did go looking for a small brush, and I really need to get myself a good small brush. So I'm going to use my Old Faithful that I use for everything, and I'm going to use the Distress Collage Medium, which I haven't used before. So again, I'm experimenting with product. Now I did think about this process as well, and prior to having the collage medium, I would use Mod Podge, or I would use Gel Matte Medium or Gel Medium Matte. I always get confused as to which way around that goes. Either of those products would work fine for this process. So I'm just going to get the tiniest little bit on this brush. It's much thicker than I expected actually. And I'm brushing all the way over. So as well as applying my image, I want to seal my little, what do you call it? My little piece is what I went to say, and I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense. My little chipboard block. All the way around the edges just to seal that off. Again, I'm looking for my paper clip, where are you? I think I put it away. get into there. And now I need to come down a little bit. I feel like it's drying really quickly. Gosh, that's pretty. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this one using the paper. I really need to get myself a smaller brush for this sort of work. Again, all the way around the edges. Just want to seal off that gesso and the edges where I've scuffed the surface. And I'm using my paper clip just to even out any blobs that have gone into that little hole. And I'm going to seal this off with matte medium, collage medium. When you have a new product but you're not used to talking about it. Okay, and I'm going to leave those to dry. Now, I will also seal the back of them with the collage medium. I do have here my metallic, it's an aged brass, which I'm not sure if it's a wax or it's a wax-based paste, which I thought would be fun. And if you don't have that, I do have this set of Montmartre or Montmartre, whatever you want to, however you want to pronounce it, acrylic paints. They're metallic, and I thought they could be really fun to use for a similar effect as I would get with my paste. Or the other thing I thought about using is archival ink. So let's have a play. Okay, I have this large archival ink. I'm going to set these aside to dry. I have this large archival ink. It's the only archival ink I have. It's waterproof, so I thought it might work for this process. And so I'm going to take one of each, and I'm just going to run my edges. All the way around. So this is the chalk paint I'm doing this on. Okay, set that aside, and then I'm going to do one with the gesso. Okay. Whoops, I might come around the front a little. So I'm just angling it to bring it in at a slight angle. And I'm going to do the back the same. And set that down just to leave it to dry for a moment. And while they are drying, I'm going to select an image. Now, I might use the same sheets, I think, just because I have them out. I'm kind of looking at this image here, this bright pink flower. Now, I'm just looking, the two that I did with the collage medium, I have put the paper image onto the chalk paint card, so I'm going to swap them around this time. So again, just using my water brush, and I'm just using the very tip of my water brush because these images are quite close together, and I'm hoping that I can separate them without destroying either image next to each other. So by just using the very tip of my brush, I can get the water in there without hopefully blending into the other image. And I pop this line in here just to give me a reference point to get to the image. Again, remembering that this is paper, so it may take a little bit more water. It may also be determined by how warm it is in your area as to how much water you actually need to apply. Okay. And I just have, oh, you can see that's bending quite well there already. Quite close to that image on the left, but I still have it intact, so I'm pretty happy with that. I have my tweezers, so I'm going to, no, it might be easier with my fingers, I think. A little bit more control in holding that image. Okay, pretty happy with that. So this time I'm putting this image on this tile. And repeating the process on the tissue paper. Okay. Sorry I went quiet. I was just wondering whether I should use the same method to attach these or a different method. Perhaps because maybe I'll get my Mod Podge out. I'm going to have to wash my brush out though. Okay. Okay, I'm using my DIY Mod Podge. I do have store-bought Mod Podge. Actually, maybe I should try it. I'll just swap that over. Okay, so I have my matte Mod Podge. I haven't used this in quite some time, so I'm hoping it will be, could be a little bit thick. We'll see. We'll see how this goes. It's looking a little bit thick to me. So maybe it's just thick because I'm used to using my DIY. So just applying this all over. And I'm going to apply it around the edge just to seal. And popping my image on about there. I really love that. I wasn't sure how the Mod Podge would go, but okay. And this is the chalk paint. So just applying this all over. I'm sorry, my belly is growling at me. I am getting hungry. It is past lunchtime and I was on a roll. I wanted to continue. You know when you're having so much fun that you don't want to stop for anything, including food? That was me. Now I'm regretting it slightly because I feel like my belly is growling at you all and I'm really sorry. So again, just doing the edges, and I will do the backs with the same product. Now I do have a bit of fluff in my glue, which has come from my brush, I think, which is a little unfortunate. Let's see if I can clear that out. My poor old brush. Okay. So this tile is a little bit, that's what I'll call them, tiles. It's a little bit smaller, not quite as wide, but we'll make it work. I do want to flatten that out with my nail. I've ended up with a little bit of colour seepage, I think, on that, but that's okay. I'm not particularly worried. That was because I rubbed it with my nail, not because the Mod Podge did that. So I don't know if you can see there's a slight, well, there is to me a slight pinkish colour down the bottom there. I'm okay with that. I don't mind that at all. Okay, so I'm going to cover my Mod Podge for now. I'm going to set those aside. I feel like I'm getting to the point where I'm going to forget what I've done, so I'm going to get myself some sticky notes and label those. And I'm going to choose a couple more. Now I'm going to use these larger tiles. I'll choose those two, I think. That one I've distressed by the look of it. And I'll use that as the back. I'm going to use this wax paste. Now, I don't know how this will take water or anything water-based. So, again, I'm experimenting. Just taking a little bit of it. The idea of doing this around the edges kind of came to me when I thought about the old books with the beautiful gold paper edges. You know, when you look at the edges of the paper or the book, when the book is closed and they have that beautiful gold, or in this case brass, appearance. And I was like, oh, that could be fun to put on my tile. It's kind of nice with a little bit coming into there. And again, you could possibly use your acrylic paints in the metallic and get a similar effect. Got a little bit more on the top there than I wanted, sorry, but it's okay, we'll work with it. Okay, so that's one. And so this is the chalk paint. It's actually not as glossy on the chalk paint, which I'm kind of liking. And I do seem to be getting a more even coat. It's certainly going on easier. Okay, I have paste all over me. So, just need to get a baby wipe. Okay, you can see that that has come off my tiles onto my baking paper. Okay, so you could see that came off onto my baking paper a little. So it's not on there. It's wiping off that little bit of excess. I might just grab some paper towel. I haven't played with this wax paste a whole lot and I really, really love it. So I'm just okay, so I've decided to use the floral study cards for these particular bases. I'm just wondering which ones. So they will take this size quite nicely. Oh, that wisteria is pretty. Okay, do I have a wisteria? I do. And you can see I had a little bit of bleeding with my tissue paper, and I will tell you that I've decided that that partly occurred because I didn't have enough adhesive on my backing paper. So there was a bit of movement in my tissue, and when I corrected that, it went through much better. I was getting much cleaner prints. So, okay. And again, I need an entry point. Not tearing as well as I would like. My water has bled there. I think I got it on my finger. So I just need to be careful in that area. You can see how delicate it is. It pulled away a little bit, but I think it will be okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the paper image. This could be my new preferred way of fussy cutting, I can tell you. I think I'm going to add some more. Okay. And again, I'm going to get my tweezers. go all the way around. So this is just to get me a little bit closer to that border. Oops, I took the corner off. That's okay. I'm just going to work with it. I mean, you could cut these if you prefer a fine cut edge, but I don't want that look for what I'm doing, so. And now that I know that this will work, I could prep these ahead of time before actually gluing them down. Okay. So which way around? I'm thinking this is a little bit bigger, so and see if I can. This has made the colour in the ink run, which is quite ironic because I tried to get the colour in the ink to run for a different project and I couldn't. And now that I want it to not run, it is running, but I actually really love the look that it's given. It's almost like I've distressed it without actually distressing it, so I think that's really fun. Now, I may actually take these out, and I don't know how they're going to go with the tissue in particular. I might try these with my lacquer and see how they apply with the lacquer. I won't take the camera out there, but I will show you the finished results once they've dried. So I might do that because I would really like to see how that lacquer translates to making these. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. We've had a little play. I'm going to bring these across. These are our Mod Podge images with the distress ink around the outside, the archival ink, sorry. And these are the pieces that we did just with the roughed up edges. And I really love them all. I don't know which ones I like better. So, and these ones obviously have the gold wax around them, and you could use the metallic paint and get a very similar effect if you don't have the gold wax. The brass wax, sorry. This one. Art Alchemy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I may even try some with the metallic paint. I don't know. I'll see how I go. I've got so many ideas, and I really want to make these to go with my journal that I'm making. So I need to work out what look I like before I move forward and create more, I think. So, but I will attach these using the lacquer that I have, and I will pop back and show you the results. So thank you so much for joining me, everybody. I really hope you've enjoyed experimenting along with me. I've had lots of fun, and I love the technique. I love the different looks that we've created, and yet they're all very similar. So stay inspired, happy crafting, and I look forward to seeing you all soon, everybody. Bye for now.